Hey guys, welcome to the Heroes Institute. I'm Damien and today we're going to talk about an interesting topic called change. I know change can be a bit of a dirty word for some, but in this case we're going to clean it up because we're going to apply a Japanese philosophy of change that makes you feel like you're not even changing at all. Kai-Zen. If you can read this, it is a Japanese term, whereas the first word Kai means change, and the second word Zen, which you are probably familiar with, means essentially good. So good change. However, if you put it together, it creates a kind of different meaning. It means continuous improvement. And this is exactly what Kaizen has been used in, especially in the management kind of context, whereas they used continuous change over long periods of time to improve efficiency in the workplace or production line. Now, we're going to do a little bit different, something different. We're going to take it from a management kind of context and apply it to our own individual lives to see how continuous improvement can help us implement change effectively and sustainably. Okay, so why is this important? I mean, why should you even care about Kaizen? And the truth is, human beings are naturally resistant to change. I mean, we don't like change. We like to be in our comfort zones. I mean, not all people, but a lot of people don't really like change, especially big changes. So think about kind of big changes that government make, like the tax reforms or health packages, or when they build a new pipeline or highway and it affects you. A lot of people tend to just react by kind of rejecting that change. They don't want it. They like the status quo. Okay, so let's look at changes in our own life. And the example I like to talk about is New Year's resolutions. So I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with having New Year's resolutions, or people that we know of having these radical resolutions that 90% of the time, or even 95% of the time, they don't work, simply because the changes are too radical. So, for instance, someone that is usually unhealthy decides to be super healthy this year. So they decide to go to the gym 5 times a week and they have green smoothies galore. And as soon as the initial surge of motivation runs out, or they don't see any results, they tend to fall back into their own habits, because it's very scary to make that jump from being like sitting down all day and just becoming the fittest person in the world. So this is where most people would fail, because they make these grand or radical changes and the system kind of rejects it because it's just too sudden. There's no stepping stones to it. Now this is where the beauty of Kaizen comes in, where the changes are so subtle and gradual that the system barely notices that it's changing. So there's no kind of reaction or kind of a shock to the system. Now, it's important to recognize that Kaizen is not a method. It's more of a philosophy or way of thinking and acting that creates results in the long term. And it can be applied to almost every single situation in your life. For instance, whether it's health goals or career goals or even relationship goals, by applying a certain type of thinking that over the long run, like making incremental change through the long run, you're far more likely to succeed rather than just having some kind of magic bullet or kind of shortcut to success. Okay, so how do we implement Kaizen in our life? And it's, as I said before, it's about continuous improvement over time. And if we look at the key variables here, we can see that we got two. One is the increments we take, and the other one is time, how much time we give ourselves to achieve a goal. Now let's take a big scary goal, for instance. Let's say we want to climb Everest and you never climbed a mountain before. So going from never climbing to climbing Everest, it's pretty much impossible. However, if you kind of break it down to 100 small little increments or mini goals, you're far more likely to achieve that massive goal, and it becomes less scary because you built up that momentum and the ability and capacity to do that. Now let's take another practical example. Let's say you want to do 100 push-ups and you've never done a push-up in your life. So obviously if I told you to do 100 push-ups now and you've never done one before, you would probably fail, most likely. Okay, so by applying Kaizen, you would just break that goal down into, just say, 100 little small steps. And you would kind of extend that time period you allow yourself to achieve that goal. So let's just say day 1 you do 1 push-up, day 2 2 push-ups, day 3 3 push-ups, and so forth. by the time you get to the 100th day, you're a lot more likely to be able to do that 100 push-ups at that time, because you kind of built it up over time. Now, the beauty of it is that, you know, the difference between day 20 and day 21, or day 30 and 31, is that it's the changes are imperceptible. You can't really tell the difference. You know, doing 20 push-ups and doing 21 push-ups, you feel pretty much exactly the same. So it's the idea of doing very small incremental steps that allow you to achieve that massive goal in the end. Of course, this is just a thought experiment, and reality might be a little bit different. However, it kind of illustrates just how Kaizen can be applied into your everyday life. Like, for instance, by taking a big goal, you can kind of shrink it by just chopping it up into little small pieces. In the end, it's really about finding what approach works for you. So someone that's risk averse might take very tiny small steps, where someone that's less risk averse might take bigger steps or increments. So it's really about asking yourself, what's the smallest possible step I'm comfortable with taking that will eventually lead me to my goals. And by applying this kind of process, you can kind of break down a big goal into smaller little chunks or pieces. And the beauty of it is that these little small pieces or chunks or increments are kind of insignificant, and it's like you can't even tell you're changing. They're so imperceptible, but over time the effects are compounded that eventually you get to your goal. So for instance, superannuation funds or pension funds or even swear jars, you don't realize, like, over time when you keep making those contributions, you don't realize that the fund itself is, or the effect is growing. And then it's only when you look back at it you can start to see that, wow, there has been some major changes over time. So this is where the beauty of Kaizen really lies in, where you can create little small changes without even realizing it, and then you have massive results in the end. Okay, so some tips and caveats when applying Kaizen to achieve your goals in life. So the first one is to resist the temptation to leap. Instead, aim for steps. So what I mean by that is obvious. It's like, instead of going for 50% kind of increments, go for 10% or 5% or whatever, because everyone has a different tolerance to change. So you just got to recognize what kind of increments can you take comfortably that will eventually lead you to your goals. So you don't have to go by the 1%, you can go by 10% or 20%, depending on your kind of tolerance to change. The only true constant in life is change. And as we all know, life can be pretty unpredictable at times. So what this means with respect to Kaizen is that sometimes in life you're going to experience some setbacks or some unpredictability that kind of forces you to change your plan. And the great thing about Kaizen is that when you change 1% of the time, and when a setback happens, you only go back 1%. So for instance, if you're trying to lose weight and you have a strict diet and exercise regime, sometimes you're going to cheat on your diet, and sometimes you're going to miss out on your workout. But that's okay, because it's only one step back. So it's just a matter of just getting back into that routine that you have built throughout time. So that's another great benefit of taking smaller steps rather than bigger steps, so you have less to lose. Kaizen is more a continuous process of improvement rather than a one-time process of reaching your goals or perfection. So even if you achieve your goals or idea of perfection, you just keep going, you keep improving. And that's what makes Kaizen a very powerful life philosophy. It's all about the long game rather than focusing on the short game. And it's about leaving your expectations of success in the beginning, so you don't have this expectation that you'll succeed every step on the way. So by leaving it in the beginning, it's just a matter of time until you reach success. And that's the beauty of Kaizen. As I always say, there are no shortcuts, there are no magic bullets in life, there are just better ways of doing things. And for me, Kaizen has been extremely effective for me because I've adhered to it for a long period of time, around 15 years. So it's how I've lived and worked in 5 different countries. I've built unshakable confidence. I've built strong relationships with friends. I've maintained sub 10% body fat, and a lot of different improvements in various aspects of my life. Now my question to you is, how will you implement Kaizen in your life? So let me know in the comments below, and as usual, subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.